Have here a short video clip that I'm going to share to give you an overview about the topic that I'm going to discuss.
Anything which is an output of their minds and expressed afterwards, that is intellectual property. How do you protect it? If you're an artist, generally you contract out. So that means that you sell your intellectual property to a firm, to a corporation, and then they pay you money for it, and then after that they can do whatever they want with it. However, as an artist, you have more than just that. You have these things called moral rights. You have the right of attribution. If what you're doing is something which is entirely yours, the story is yours, the characters are yours, then you have a right of attribution. If a person were to hire you for creative work, and that work is part of your duties, then this is not your intellectual property at all. This is actually the intellectual property of somebody else, and you're just being there to help out. If you're just making sketches, or if you're just coloring, or if you're just making illustrations based on something which a person already conceptualized, then that is not protected at all. That property you're making just belongs to another person. Now, if it was your creation, like if it wasn't X-Men, if it was Omen, then you sell that to a company. That project is your intellectual property, and so you have a right to have your name there. If, however, you are making a story, like for example, you have X-Men, but you're creating a story for the X-Men, that's yours. It's important because that's how you're known. People have to know who you are. People have to know who created this work. That is the main reason why people would go to you. They find something so beautiful or so expressive to them that they connect with it. They will get you again. They were going to ask, who made this? And I want to get the works of this person. You have a right to have your name attached all the time. In fact, you have to have it attached as much as possible. Why? Because that will help the creative industry. There people will realize that, hey, you don't have to go to a big corporation. You can go to this person and he will give you value for money. That is the kind of trust, again, which the Creative Content Development Program would like to encourage, would like to teach, would like to impart to people. Most people don't understand the concept of registration in the National Library. Definitely, if you create something, even if it's not registered, it's yours. It's intellectual property. It's protected by the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines. Why is there a registration in the National Library? The registration in the National Library is only for proof. Let me be clear about this. Registration in the National Library is not there to get any rights, to obtain any rights. It's just there for evidentiary purposes. In case you have to go to court, you will be able to show that yes, it's mine. It's registered under my name. I registered it on this date, which came before the time that you created your thing, which you copied from me. That's what registration is for. It's only for matters of evidence. However, if you don't have registration, you can always have other evidence other than registration. It's not there to take a right to have a right. No, these things are automatic as soon as you create the work.
Okay, so based on the video clip, it was discussed and defined already what is intellectual property. And it says that anything that comes from your mind or being expressed, that's automatic an intellectual property. So just to define it clearly, intellectual property refers to the creations of mind. So anything that comes from our mind that's being expressed, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images that is being used in commerce, or it is a collection of ideas and concepts, the ownership of ideas, that's yours. But how can we protect our intellectual property? So it was being mentioned also on the video clip, the first type of intellectual property. But how are we going to protect our intellectual property? So there are two organizations. So here in the Philippines, so we have what we call the IP that protects the product of your mind, or the Republic Act 8293, or the Intellectual Property Code or of the Philippines. And then we have the WIPO, or the World Intellectual Property Organizations, that protects as well the intellectual works of an individual. So what really the Republic Act 8293 all about? So the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines, or the Republic Act number 8293, is an act prescribing the intellectual property code and establishing the Intellectual Property Office, providing for its powers and functions and for other purposes. So what's mainly the functions of the IPO? So in Section 2, in Declaration of State Policy, in the Part 1 of Intellectual Property Office, so it says there that the state recognizes that an effective intellectual and industrial property system is vital. So it means it's important. So the development of domestic and creative activity facilitates transfer of technology, attracts foreign investments, and ensures market access for our products. So under also of the Section 2 of Declaration of State of Policy in the Intellectual Property Office, it shall protect and secure the exclusive rights of scientists, inventors, artists, and other gifted citizens to their intellectual property and creations, particularly when beneficial to the people for such periods as provided in this Act. So we are going to discuss as well the validity of your work or your property or creation. So Part 1 of the Intellectual Property Office, also under Section 2 in Declaration of the State Policy, it is also a policy of the state to streamline administrative procedures of registering the patents, which we're going to discuss also later on, what is trademark, and the copyright, which is being introduced to you already a while ago. So to liberalize the registration and the transfer of technology, and to enhance the enforcement of the intellectual property rights here in the Philippines. But what really the functions of the Intellectual Property Office? I have here listed down here some of the functions of the IPO. So first is to administer and implement the state policies that is being act or declared in this act, examine the applications for grant, examine applications for registration, register technology transfer arrangements and settle disputes, promote the use of patent information, publish regularly in its own publication, the patent, the marks, administratively adjudicate contested proceedings affecting intellectual property rights, and coordinate with the other government agencies and private sectors efforts to formulate and implement plans and policies to strengthen the protection of intellectual property rights here in our country. So those are some of the roles or functions of the IPO. But I'm going to explain as well, as I mentioned, what's patent, what is copyright, and what is trademark. So based on the video clip, it discussed there what is copyright. So let's say for example, so on this example on our screen, so it shows here a car design. So it has a hood ornament which is designed, patent, or be copyright. So there's a logo or a model name which indicates the manufacturer's name or the trademark. But what's really or what are the different types of intellectual property? First, we have what we call the copyright. So, what is copyright? So, when you say copyright, it is the original expression of an idea. So, when we say patent, it is a novel idea or invention, or it can be. When we say trademark, it is any confidential practice or processes that gives a business a competitive advantage. And when we say trademark, it is an expression, a symbol, or a design that identifies a specific business or organization. So I have here again a video clip that discusses some informations about the intellectual property, including the copyright.
In today's digital world, it's easier than ever to copy, paste, mash up, remix, download, and publish content. People's writing, artwork, videos, and images can be inspiring, but they're also easy to take without thinking twice. When people treat the internet like a free-for-all, legal and ethical situations can arise. That's why it's important to know about copyright and fair use. It would help you give and receive credit where credit is due. So what's a copyright? Copyright law protects your control over the creative work you make. It requires people to get your permission before they copy, rework, or share what you make. Most things that you find, download, and copy and paste from the internet are copyrighted. That doesn't mean that everything online is on lockdown and can't be used. It can. As long as you check who owns it, get permission to use it, give credit to the creator, buy it if necessary, and use it responsibly, then you're not stealing. Now, there are times when you can use a small part of someone else's copyrighted work without permission or paying a fee. This is called fair use. Fair use only applies when using content in certain instances: schoolwork and education, news reporting, criticizing or commenting, and comedy or parody. Specific guidelines, what we call the 4 points of fair use, must also be followed. First, you can only use a small amount of the work. Second, you have to add new meaning to the work to make it original. Third, you need to rework it and use it in a totally different way. Finally, you have to use it for nonprofit purposes. In other words, you can't make money off of your new creation. No matter what, it's a good idea to give credit to the creator of the work you use. It's just a sign of respect. So what should you do if you find something online that you want to use? As a rule of thumb, check who owns it, get permission to use it, give credit to the creator, buy it if necessary, and use it responsibly, which means judging for fair use. You're a creator, innovator, and inspirer. Think twice about your rights and responsibilities in our online culture, and then pay it forward.
Okay, so on the video clip, it was discussed what is copyright and how are we going to protect our copyright without violating the copyright law through the use of fair use. So copyright is a legal term that is used to describe the rights that the creators have over it's either a literary work or an artistic work. Let's say, for example, it's a book, a music, a painting, a sculpture, or even a film. Or it can be a computer programs, databases, advertisements, maps, and technical drawings. So copyright is being protected or by the copyright law. But how are we going to use those materials without violating the copyright law? So it was mentioned there also the fair use. When we say fair use, it means that you can use the copyrighted material without a license only for a certain purposes. But there are things that you need to remember. So let's say, for example, that you use a specific statement or a line which is used for commentary, for criticism, for reporting, for research, or teaching. It should be remembered always that majority of the content that is being copied or used for a specific purpose, let's say for teaching, it should be, or majority of the content you create must be your own, and you will not own the work by the others. So to return to the example above, it's probably fair use to include a few relevant photos, let's say for example, ideas in your blog post, presentation, or research paper. But it doesn't mean that using these same photos in a project with only a few lines or commentary might not be a fair use. So as another example, let's imagine that you found a useful tutorial you wanted to feature in your blog. Including one tip from tutorial would be a fair use. Simply republishing the entire tutorial would not be fair use, even if you link to original source. So give credit to the copyright holder as always. And in order for something to be fair use, you must give full credit to the person who created that. So don't make money off of the copyrighted work or for profitable. So in general, it's much easier to claim fair use when you are using the copyrighted material for non-commercial purposes, while posting images of your favorite TV shows, let's say, and adding funny captions and commentary might be considered fair use, but selling these images on t-shirts would not. So fair use guideline, it should be remembered that majority of the content you create must be your own. Give credit to the copyright holder. Don't make money off of the copyrighted work. So there are limitations on copyright. If you're going to check in Chapter 8 in Section 185, Fair Use of Copyrighted Work, in 185.1, the fair use of copyrighted work for criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, including multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, research, and similar purposes is not an infringement or violating the law or violating the copyright law. So the compilation, which is understood here to be the reproduction of the code and translation of the forms of computer program to achieve the interoperability of an independently created computer program with other programs, may also constitute for fair use. But of course, you are not allowed to use that for commercial or for profitable purposes. And always give credit to the original source. So we have what we call the Creative Commons, to introduce to you as well. The CC or Creative Commons is as an American non-profit organization. Basically, they are devoted to expand the range of created works available for others to build upon legally and to share that. So basically, this organization helps to release several copyright licenses, which is known as the Creative Commons licenses, which is free of charge to the public. So without violating the copyright law, so the CC or Creative Commons licenses is free of charge and freely used by the public. So next we have the Creative Commons reminders. Always attribution, you must credit the creator as always, just like the fair use. Non-commercial, you can't make a profit of it. No derivative works, or you cannot change the content, and share alike. So it means that you cannot change you can change the content, but you have to let other people use your new